Yeah, what's going on? What's going on out there? What's up? What's up? Welcome to this fine Wednesday. No, it's not Wednesday. It's Thursday. This fine Thursday edition of Good Morning B. Hannas. That's me. What's happening? I am Nikki B. Hannas. This is my little morning talk show. Damn, someone's in there. Someone's in the chat. Let me check the audio. I like to get up in the whole premise of this. I like to get up in the morning, take a nice walk, come in here and read some good stuff, talk to the people, go to the gym and lift some weights. Today is leg day. Leg day separates the elite from the non-elite, but that's okay. Yeah, I'll do that. Go to work. But I like to come in here and talk some shit. Oh, and I got audio first time. Righteous. Well, good morning, everybody. What's going on? It is a fine Thursday morning here. And yes, it is leg day today. I learned this from training with my man Kenny, Cancer Kenny. Big dog, gangster dude, fucking goes to radiation therapy or chemotherapy early in the morning and then gets to the gym long before me. I haven't worked out with Kenny in a while because he's in there at the crack of dawn. And I'm just not in that phase right now. I'm in a phase where I'm trying to talk to the people. I'm trying to establish different patterns of movement and habits. And while I would like this to be earlier, it seems as if currently I'm hovering right around 9 o'clock. Right around 9 o'clock, which means I get to the gym and I get about 35 minutes to crush and then go to work. That's all good. But being in the presence of somebody who's got all types of different cancers, one day it's in his nuts, then it's in his stomach. This dude's literally fucking, yeah, I mean, I'll talk about Kenny later on. I don't want to spiral about Kenny right now because he's probably going to call me and say, yo, where you at? Get out of bed. Did you oversleep? Come on, buddy, wakey. But that's okay. We'll get in there and do some squats. One thing I learned about doing legs from him, like I was saying, is that it's helpful to me to separate my hamstrings and my quads on leg workouts because it's to the uninitiated, it is a brutal session when you're done at the gym and you can't fucking move. When you're waddling around, or if you got to use the bathroom, or if you got to go up and down steps or get in and out of a car, bruh, if you really crush a leg workout, it is a motherfucking vicious thing. And to some people, it's demoralizing. For me, for a long time, I would just not do legs because I'm like, dude, I'm too busy for this. I'm working all the time, yada, 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 making up excuses. But leg days are disproportionately advantageous on a neurophysical, muscular building level, as far as I understand it, at least. There's allegedly science out there to back that up. But in any event, today I'm going to go do some squats and leg extensions and leg presses and shit. Get strong. But neither here nor there. I don't really give workout advice. I would like to talk more about lifting, but I question my authority there. I would defer y'all to my man EMP for that. Anyway, today's readings were pretty good. I don't really want to rely on just, oh, here's my podcast. I like to read. I like to talk to people about what I read. But motherfucker, that's what I like to do. That's what I like to do because it's insightful. And if there's any benefit to me getting out here and talking, sharing insight would be the goal there. Insight that I've learned from my interesting life, but that's okay. I'm still reading Embrace the Suck by Brent Gleason. And there's a quote in there that I like today. He says that maintaining focus on what is in our control and ignoring or at least deprioritizing everything else is a core tenet of the growth mindset and applies equally in achieving goals and overcoming obstacles in our personal and professional lives. Now, this is something that I've always known. This is pretty common parlance in these realms of personal development and growth, self-help, if you will. But I like the way he phrased it all the same. Maintaining focus on what is in our control and ignoring or at least deprioritizing everything else. And that's what it is. Because I think this is something I talk about pretty often, something I think about pretty often, because I'm relatively politically oriented. I like to consider myself an American patriot. But to what extent does the outside world dictate what's going on inside my own world? And when I observe the outside world and I see people in a perpetual state of existential spiraling, be it if you're a communist adjacent liberal who hates the orange man and rejects fascism and rah, 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 or if you're on the right wing and nowadays it's the echo chamber where we don't even need to see the island list. We don't even need to see this. Let's just, come on, guys. Let's just move. Let's just keep it pushing. It's all a bunch of fuckery. And these people make me sick. And despite my leanings over the course of the past 7 or 8 years, I would look too much into that and question how much of my identity I put on that, how much of my aesthetic right now, bald head, knockoff pit vipers, riffs or die, American flags and shit. That's being American AF is at some point a character trait. And how much of that is actually inspired by ideals or virtues versus cult of personality following. It's an interesting dichotomy. And when I look at the news or when I scroll through the news pages, when people say that we're cooked, they have a compelling argument to make. So things are fucked up. But how much of a priority is that in my day-to-day life? Am I going to wake up and turn on the news just to get mad and then exist in that spiral? Because a lot of people do. A lot of people make money off that. A lot of people make careers off of that. So it's not invalid as much as I'd like to say it. And then I also dislike people who bury their head in the sand and really have no idea what's going on in the proverbial out there. For better or worse, it's important to know what's going on. But deprioritizing that seems to be more useful. Deprioritizing that and worrying about oneself and one's own endeavors and one's pursuits, one's growth, one's development, one's family and friends and business. It seems to be so much more useful. And of course, of course it is. Of course it is. Shit, I suspect, I can't prove, but I suspect that, we've had some crazy ass flash flooding in this little corner of Pennsylvania over the past week and a half, 2 weeks. Over the past couple of years, it's been more intense than I've ever recalled throughout my life. And then there's, the horrible things that are going on in New Mexico and fucking Texas in terms of floods. And while I want to make a Stevie Ray Vaughan Texas flood joke to make levity out of it, there's not really much levity to be had. But I say that to say that I suspect that the motherfucking government controls the motherfucking weather and that they're turning something up to do something to us little people, to us peons. You know what I'm saying? But I can't prove that shit. And am I going to live my life lamenting HARP, turning the machines on in CERN and all these evil things? Because, trust and believe, I've looked into it. But to what extent? To what extent? At what point do you look into it and then fucking just constantly live looking over your shoulder, And there's something to be said. We're, most of us, my intended audience at least, we're men out here. Motherfucker, you should be looking over your shoulder. Don't be a prey animal. That stands to reason, in my opinion. But don't live like that. It's very interesting. And even just a little bit of a different phrasing of something I already know to be true. I already know it to be true to focus on what's in our control, what's in my control rather, and do the best with what I can. That's a core tenet of that's the serenity prayer in AA. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that, like many things that I've learned in AA, being around AA, it's barely about drinking. Once you get over the cessation of alcohol, which when it proves itself to be a destructive, whirling dervish and whirlwind of evil in one's own life, it becomes about reconstituting oneself into a healthy way of living. So it ain't even about the bottle per se. It's about controlling what you can, knowing what you can't, doing the best with all of it, deprioritizing everything else. And that's mostly relevant to me because, my recent turn on the orange man, I'm sickened now. I'm sickened now whenever I watch the news. All of it, every little bit of it makes me fucking irritated. So either I don't engage or I fix how I engage. Deprioritizing it, correct. But it's also hard to deprioritize it without entering the demoralization scheme of things, as I talked about on my 4th of July special. It's very interesting. It all comes down to attitude. And there's only so many ways you can say to have a good attitude. Evidently, there's a million ways you can discuss the positive attitude needed to fucking live a good life. And I'm out here live on YouTube with no technical issues today, learning how to live a good life. So that's what I learned from Mr. Brent Gleason today. So thank you, sir, for that. Embrace the suck is that book, which is an awesome saying. Apparently it's a Navy SEAL saying, but I ain't no Navy SEAL. Moving on from that, I went to my daily John Maxwell reader, which more or less mimicked As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, which, as a man thinks, so he is. Another basic principle that we all know, but there's endless amounts of literature to articulate that message. And a lot of messages that sound simple aren't always super simple, not to the point where it's condensed into a saying. Maybe we have to extrapolate it and really get into it, reinforce it. That's what I'm doing out here. Anyway, today on July 10th, my man John Maxwell says, it's the power of thought. The human mind has a tremendous amount of power in our lives. That which holds our attention determines our actions. Yes, sir. You can control your thoughts, and because of that, you can control your attitude. Easy to say when you're in a chilling place. You know what I mean? When you're just normal, relaxed, hanging out, of course. And then when you get pissed off or sad or fucking, impacted negatively by something, that's when the bad attitude creeps in. And it's very difficult to have a fucking good attitude in bad circumstances unless we train ourselves to do so, which is something I'm constantly doing. And like I said, this little BS with Hannas. Damn, I didn't even plug my shit today. I just wanted to get right into it. That's okay. I'll plug at the end. He ends it with saying, here's the major premise. We can control our thoughts. The minor premise is our feelings come from our thoughts. Therefore, we can control our feelings by changing how we think, which is generally true. Generally true. Some of us feel more intensely than others. Some of us are on fucking selective serotonin reuptake inhibiting drugs because we are a medicated nation. So you don't even know what the fuck you feel. And feelings come from somewhere else too. Like there's a relationship for sure between thinkings and feelings, but they're not the same thing. If you feel a type of way, motherfucker, you feel a type of way. Irrational anger exists as commonly, if not more commonly, I would say, than justified or righteous anger. But anger is separate from that. Anger is anger all day. Fear is fear. Nervousness is nervousness, apprehension, etc. Sadness, you go talk to a sad motherfucker. They know they shouldn't be sad, but I bet you they still are. So how do you think your way out of feelings? It's very tough. Character will get you. Character seems to be the thing to be developed to manage intense feelings like that. But intense feelings are just that, no matter what you think about them. So it's very interesting. So I guess the takeaway is to develop a character who can handle intense feelings and not let intense feelings completely, tear you up, fucking take you off the path. Why is that important? John Maxwell continues, because your attitude is your emotional approach to life, right? It's the framework through which you see events, other people, even yourself. That's why I believe the saying, you are not what you think you are, but what you think you are. As a man thinketh, in other words. And I like John Maxwell, but James Allen said that a lot earlier in the world, but that's okay. So that was his reading today, which ties into this one a little bit. What am I at, 13 minutes? I gotta fucking kick the pace up, dude. It used to be like a 5-10 minute idea. I had to come out here. I'm averaging 15 to 20. That's okay. July 10th in the Daily Stoic, compiled by Ryan Holiday. Love the humble art. This is a quote from Marcus Aurelius. Love the humble art you have learned and take rest in it. Pass through the remainder of your days as one who wholeheartedly entrusts all possessions to the gods, making yourself neither a tyrant nor a slave to any person. Okay, what does that mean, Mr. Marcus Aurelius? Love the humble art you have learned and take rest in it. When I read a lot of quotes like this from the book, it oftentimes does take, because I don't have the context of, I'm not actually reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius right now. I'm just reading an excerpt with no context. Meditations was Marcus's notes to himself that, as far as I understand, he never intended even to be published, let alone a canonical piece of the Stoic philosophy tradition, fucking 1900 years later or whatever. But when I read the quotes that Ryan Holiday picks out and then his commentary on it, sometimes that's where the lesson kind of comes in to me. And Ryan Holiday gives the example of going into a comedy club on a weeknight in LA or New York and finding big names. And I keep dropping shit. Finding big names or professionals in the comedy club at 1 a.m. getting up and working on material, working on a bit, live time, improv. Comedy is an interesting thing like that. I'm no comedian, allegedly. Or, it's like, it's not that different from guitar playing. If you got a real big gig, you need to practice, you need to practice, you need to practice. And how does a comic, how does a stand-up comic, a comedian, how do you practice that except for needing the audience engagement? You could practice in your room in a mirror as if it's public speaking 101, but that's not quite the same. You need to know what bits are going to bomb and which ones are good. There's a very thick philosophy that goes into comedy, one that I'm not familiar with. I've never done stand-up, never been to a stand-up performance, but I expect, it stands to reason that people who fashion themselves or consider themselves comedian, that's their identity. You gotta work the bits out live. And that means going into where the scene actually is. Even if you're in a Hollywood fucking movie, you got all types of money and fame and notoriety and reputation. It stands to reason that if your humble art is comedy, joke telling, you got to get out there in the lion's den and do it. So Ryan Holiday says, whatever humble art you practice, are you sure you're making time for it? Are you loving what you do enough to make the time? I like this part right here. Can you trust that if you put in the effort, the rest will take care of itself? Because it will. Love the craft. Be a craftsman. Love the craft and be a craftsman. And that runs itself into the whole identity stories that we tell ourselves, the narrative of one's life with oneself, which is, to me, at least at this point in my life, that's the most important thing there is to consider. That is the most important thing to consider. If your story sucks, you're going to suck. If you're writing a good story, probably going to do pretty good. If you're writing a fucking awesome story, I bet you think your life is fucking awesome. And if you think your life is awesome, who the fuck cares what anyone else thinks? But dude, where did I drop my shit? All that is contingent on honesty, in my view. Until you get honest, you don't really know. So that's what I'm thinking about today with my readings. I got one more. This was a little excerpt from Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, Richard Carlson. The section that stuck out to me today was just called Relax. Just relax. We need to relax, everybody. Just relax. Usually that shit makes me mad. Shut up. Don't fucking tell me to relax. I'll relax when I want to. But there was some insight to be gained here. He said, Richard Carlson says that being more relaxed involves training yourself to respond differently to the dramas of life, turning your melodrama into mellow drama. Corny, kind of soft. A lot of the stuff in this Don't Sweat the Small Stuff book doesn't strike me as if it's written by a hard man. Strikes me as if it's written by a soft man who wants to embrace self-love and just love oneself and accept oneself and be graceful with oneself. And that's just my fucking that's my demeanor coming out, projecting into that one a little bit, because he's absolutely right. Turning melodramatic bullshit into mellow dramas. That stuck out to me. I like that. He says it's useful to think of relaxation as a quality of heart that you can access on a regular basis rather than something to be reserved for a later time. And I found that very insightful today. The idea of relaxing. I seldom relax. I don't really relax until the end of the night, usually. That's usually when I'll watch TV or watch something and eat my food after the day's work is done. If I start my day by taking a nice walk and reading some good stuff and talking to the people, going to lift some weights, and then typically I'm at work all motherfucking day. I have other endeavors that I like to do. You know what I mean? I like to play Magic with my fucking friends or play Halo on split screen LAN parties, hang out with my OG buddies I know since I was fucking 15 years old. That's very important to me. I like to go out and I like to jam. I like to play music with people. I'm part of a couple different creative endeavors musically, locally. Obviously, I like to record music. I like to write music. If that's a studio night, that's a long fucking night. But I don't really relax because there's things to be done. Got to go to the grocery store. Got to cook my food for the next 5-6 days. so I don't have to eat takeout and get fat and fucking DoorDash every night like a slob. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's a million things to fucking do. Got to do. I don't have fucking house care. So if I got to mow the lawn, I got to mow the fucking lawn now. Neighbors are making me look bad. And if I get the chance to make them look bad, God damn it, I got to take it. You know what I'm saying? It's shit like that. Laundry and just basic house cleaning stuff. Like, always things to be done. So when does one find the time to relax? I get one day off a week, one full day off a week I got. And that's when I get a lot of my shit done. And then I'm in the position where it's like, well, I got one day off. Am I just going to relax? I'm just going to relax my whole day away. This is valuable motherfucking time. This is valuable motherfucking time. The little bit of time throughout the week, that's my time. I got to use it. Can't just relax. Shit, when I was drinking, I spent all motherfucking day in bed half the time on my day off, just relaxing. Shit, when I was drinking, I'm just going to get a six pack and go home and just relax. I'm just going to get a little bit of weed, go home and just relax. Ends up with me spending a lot of time, valuable time in my life, just high as fuck, staring at a wall, reaching for a beer. Do I regret it? Yes, in some ways. In other ways, not so much. So I don't really value relaxing in the common way it's used. But I like the way he put it here. I like the way he put it here a lot. It's useful to think of. I totally just didn't even make words right there. Excuse me. Let me try it again. I like the way he put it right here. It's useful to think of relaxation as a quality of heart that you can access on a regular basis rather than something reserved for a later time. To be a relaxed individual, to have that quality about you that becomes part of you. It's character. Everything points back to character. So I guess that's the whole point of me doing this. In some ways, I'm working on developing my character. I want to do all these things and embody all these things. And, you know what I mean? It's goes back to that old Aristotle quote that I like a lot, which I wrote down because I always fucked this quote up. What did Aristotle say? Aristotle says, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. That's right. So habits, character, so on and so forth lends itself to a good life. Be the person who does the thing to have the results. And hey, fuck it. If you don't get the results, then at least you're doing the right things over and over and over again. Doing the right things over and over again leads to a pretty good experience out here, despite the frustrations and bullshit. So that's what I got today. Happy motherfucking Thursday. 23 minutes in. Shit. I better scurry to the gym and do some squats, put some weight on the motherfucking barbell. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me. This has been a fine Thursday edition of BS with B. Hannas. I'm Nicky B. Hannas. You can find this on YouTube, going live at some point in the mornings, evidently around 9. What's up, EMP? Oh, you're the number one fan, bro. You got a badge out here. My dude, fuck yeah. Anyway, you can find this on YouTube, BS with B. Hannas. It goes out to the Spotify podcast, Apple podcast, Amazon Audible podcast services. BS with B. Hannas. You can find my music, heavy blues metal, nickybhannas.com, nickybhannas.bandcamp.com, Nicky B. Hannas on all streaming services. We're going to go back to shoot from the hip gunslinging to run this motherfucker out. Happy Thursday. Let's get some. Peace. One love.